What's up, Doc? Good to see you.
It's my pleasure.
I'm amazed when we had the event honoring you. It seems like now just a few short weeks ago, and we were sitting on the podium when you gave me the information, and I was floored. Tell me a bit about what occurred, and obviously, as I've indicated, it has some unique background to it.
Well, I received the information by international wire, of course, telephone call, and I didn't believe it because there was no way that I could consciously assume that the role of the government or any official within the government would have saw fit to give me any kind of honor, considering what you had seen happening in August of last year. If it was to be something to get, I anticipated going to jail, at least,
yeah.
Much less to be set to be cited for contribution to the Egyptian government. So it was to me quite a surprise, and as I said, even when I took the plane and went back to Egypt, when I landed, I wasn't really expecting anything positive.
Yeah.
However, it just did turn out to be a citation, and I found out that there are about a number of people each year, just before Ramadan, are given citations for services rendered to Egypt. It doesn't have to be that you're there physically or anything like that. If you've done something and the government feel that it adds to the prosperity of Egypt, the land or the people, then they give you a citation. Sometimes you may have the benefit of the president handing you a citation, shaking your hand, or another time it may be at a banquet ceremony. It depends on the schedule of the president.
Right.
And in this case, the president had Egypt is like a meeting place now for everybody. Almost every day there's a visitor from some country or the president going to some other country. So in this case, the president was rather busy, so it was meeting him in his office, which would be, I guess this area would be a little bigger than this stage, his office, but it's more square and it would be rectangular. Only one photographer because there's maximum security because, as you know, not too long ago a minister was shot, and there's still the situation with Saddam Hussein and so forth. So they have been very careful in terms of security. So it then mentioned in the newspaper, etc. It was rather sedate, rather informal.
Yes.
And but as I said, the fact that it did occur in any way, to me, was surprising. Of course, I didn't lose my head over it because I still realized that the forces that wanted to do what they tried to do are not necessarily going to sleep.
There was a place, Dr. Ben gave me translations of the articles, and there were 7, if I'm not mistaken, that appeared in the press. And the angle, I mean the macabre angle that they attempted to take was that Dr. Ben was a mysterious Jew who was attempting to overthrow the government of Egypt, that he was bringing in African Americans for this purpose and attempting to turn the Nubian population against the Egyptian government itself. And this is, again, these are 7 articles, and I mean, when I say the angle is very specific, it's not joking material. It's someone who's attempting to build a solid case against Dr. Ben. And in that kind of environment and climate, what we all became very clear about was that a fanatic reading that kind of material can think that they're doing something for the state in that situation by attempting to hurt or injure or even maim or kill Dr. Ben. And I myself witnessed an incident where someone actually came in a deliberate attempt to provoke Dr. Ben as well. So again, as you indicate, it's no small matter that this particular transition would take place, because certainly the forces that were operating on that level, and even in the air, I might even add, on all horizons, were certainly against this kind of recognition taking place, for sure.
Well, right now, the president the president have issued an investigation. They're investigating all travel agencies with a regular, and then there are special investigation of the 2 travel agencies that were primarily involved. What happened while I was away here in the States for approximately, 3-4 weeks, one in the office of the Minister of Tourism, the investigation was supposed to be done by subordinates of the Minister of Tourism. The individuals arranged so that that person making the investigation sent a letter to me at my house, and I was here, and sent a copy of that, of course, to the President Commission, stating that they had investigated everything, and the 2 travel agencies were found to have done nothing that suggests that they should be disciplined. I had my lawyer and so forth immediately sent a letter to the president, letting him know that we objected to this meeting, because how could there be an investigation and the complainants were not called to say anything? How could it be adjudicated by the subordinate minister? That caused the president to reopen and send his own special investigator to do the investigation. So I will be called when I return on April 1st.
Now this comes, of course, off of the victory that you had in the Islamic court as well.
Yes, the Islamic court has adjudicated that I am correct. I'm blameless because I didn't do anything. What was done against me, the newspaper articles and everything. I didn't respond in any way. You were there and see where individuals even come trying to antagonize me to a fight and everything like that, physically and so forth, which as you know, that I was going at it.
Yes, we had to hold Doc back. This is true.
Well, he want to fight, so let's fight. It was all right with me.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't think they had expected me to go at him, but he challenged me, so why let it just go away? So I needed the exercise. But, no, well, there are other things that came out of this. As a result, there are certain moves being made. The government, Mr. Aldin, the man who was the Nubian man who was in charge of the antiquities at Aswan, has been promoted now, and he's in charge of antiquities throughout the entire country. All antiquities come under him, including the museum. They are now starting to build a new museum. The one at Cairo by the Hilton Hotel is moving where I live out there in the region, less than a block away from me. They're going to put that. There are other things being done, and Nubians are brought more in government and in places more of influence. There have been a change in increasing the visibility of Nubians in the media and so forth.
When we say Nubians, Doc, it might be useful for some people who maybe don't have a background to explain who we're talking about.
Well, if you see a person looking like me, you may say, that's a Nubian. That's a mistake. I could be an Egyptian. I could be Sudanese. It is very common to see a woman, a black woman, brown skin, dark, with 3 children. And you ask her, she married? She said, yes. She said, but then your children are Nubian. Your children, she said, no. This child, this one, is Egyptian. That one is Sudanese. And that one is Nubian. And you will say, well, you had 3 husbands. She said, no, only 1 husband. So you say, well, how could one be Sudanese? You're
thoroughly confused.
Yeah. your husband is Nubian, you're a Nubian. And you got a Sudanese child, a Nubian child, and an Egyptian child. By the same 2 parents. She said, yes. You say, how? She said, well, this one was born in Sudan, the area of land called Sudan. This was born in the area of land called Egypt. That was born in the area of the land called Nubia. And Nubia is generally, in ancient times, from south, from Aswat, now called Nag Hammadi, all the way south into Sudan at a place called Dongola and Wadi Halfa, which would be an area larger than Egypt of ancient times. So that that area land is still Nubia in the minds of the Nubians, those Africans living in that area of land. Therefore, you could, as I said, you could see two people looking exactly alike. One is a Nubian and one is an Egyptian.
Dr. Ben is with us live at the Apollo. There'll be more. We'll highlight his book when we come back called Welcome Home, Black Anti-Semite Jew, the Black Jew Outside the Door. We'll also give Dr. Ben a chance to talk with us on our theme for the month, which is Soul plus Science, Black to the Future. When we talk about science, we know where the origins are, and Dr. Ben will talk a bit about those today inside of the GBE Live at the Apollo. We'll take a break and we'll come back. I'm going to up Gary Burr with Dr. Ben. We'll return right after this.
And good Falasha himself, who had suffered at the hands of this. It was necessary to show that bigotry here in New York against the Hebrews of the Commandment Keepers organization or church that Rabbi Matthews and his group, and how he tried to make friendship. It was necessary to show the behavior of European Jews against Ethiopian Jews when Mussolini came in before Hitler and did to the African Jews what Hitler did. It was the forerunner. And the African Jews came here to ask for assistance from the American Jews and was given only $287. I know it too well because Martin Rommel happened to be my uncle, the one who came for to get the assistance. Now, there are other things I felt that was needed and documentary and to be written in a form that you didn't know need 16 professors to interpret, so that anybody could read it, and it didn't have to be a big book. Or you need a little pamphlet and just some of the basic facts, and to challenge people like Ravitch and all of them, and to mention them by name.
Doctor, there's a place here where when we talk about this particular question, there's a perspective on the part of some people, not just in any one community, our own community included, who, when you say a European Jew, many of them don't know of another Jew outside of a European Jew, and that term Jew even becomes a term that is misunderstood by a number of people.
Yes, and that was a thing I had to clear up, is that when, you know, a bunch of us got a little problem, and the problem is they couldn't see Judaism as a race. They say, weren't the Jews black? No, the Jews were not black, white, green, technicolor, or nothing. No more than the Christians were black, or the Buddhists were black, or the Muslims were black. They are black Muslims of the original group of many colors, and they have Jews of the original group. That's a misnomer. That's the tribe of Judah. And you feel what I'm saying? There's no religious race. You got white Jews, but the reason they are seen and heard more, they got more money and they got more power than the other Jews of today. There was a time when they had no power during the time of the conversion. You got Indian Jew, black Jew from India, many of whom are in Israel today, most of whom are in Israel. They're called the Kashim Jews. You got Jews look like any Chinese or any Japanese. You got Jews look like myself, of course. 9,000 of them were just the other day carried to Israel. What happened is the European Jews for years and years and years befuddled people here in America, blacks and whites alike, to believe that Jews were white. That the white Jews are the minority of the Jews. Most Jews are non-white.
And so we're saying here, you're saying that the misperception here is that being Jewish becomes associated with being a particular race.
And that the white Jew is a different white man than the white Christian or the white atheist. No, a white Jew is no different than a white Christian, a white atheist, and would discriminate you as much as any other white man. He's a white man in culture and behavior.
I know that some people that I know have collected tapes and things from different programs that you've been on. And I know one of the programs that people most often refer in terms of TV shows that they saw you on were the Gil Noble Show. Where
Rabbi Schweitzer.
Yeah, can you highlight that for us for just a moment?
Well, I was on one of Gil's show, and Gil asked me a question pertaining to what about that Jews do that I would have liked African Americans to do as a part of helping us. Could we see other people doing things that could equally help us? Okay. And I stated, yes, one of the things would be the obligation that each Jewish child is expected from day one. And that he must be, number one, a helpful person in the community. He must establish the sporting a shul, a synagogue. He must establish a hospital. He must establish a place of education, and he must establish, did I say hospital? Yeah. And he must establish a place for his good and welfare, to take care of each other. And that's the first thing a Jewish community must have. Now, I said that would be very, and then I said, well, by that, when you said Jews should have, I said, do you mean the African Jews or the European Jews or the Asian Jews? Which one you mean? And so Gil said, I said, yes. I mean, Gil was saying, in other words, you got all those kinds of Jews. So I said, yes. Based upon the Judaism, the first Jew was not a European, because based upon Torah, he was a man named Avram, born in Asia at a place called Chaldea. See? Then the next time you're hearing about other Jews would be Jews born after they came into Africa, a place called Egypt, would be who followed Joseph, and Moses is the celebrated one, born in Egypt. Of course, there are thousands more, because they're coming with seven people and their little husband and wives and so forth, and then leave with hundreds of thousands, based upon their own writing. Exactly. I'm not saying that writing is correct now. I mean, based upon the story, because much of it is fable.
Including, from your perspective, Doc, the issue of Moses leading the Jews out of Egypt and parting the waters.
He realizes a Jew when he's 85 years of age. It's a long time to be living to wait to recognize that you're Jewish. And then he leads the people out, and he gets up there on Mount Sinai, and he got all the intelligence, and he finds out the moral laws. When he read those moral laws, were training them by the priests, if in fact the Moses story has any validity.
We'll break and we'll come back and we'll move into that part of the conversation. Soul plus Science, Black to the Future with Dr. Ben when we come back in the GBE. We're at Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. This is Afrocentricity. I'm up Gary Bird. We'll come back with more right after this. Nubian Sundance brings us back inside of the GBE Live for the world-famous Apollo Theater at 110. Let's welcome back our guest, Dr. Ben, to the world-famous Apollo Theater on this Wednesday afternoon. Well, as some of you know, we are doing a series of programs throughout the course of the month in conjunction also with Women's History Month, a series of programs called Soul plus Science, Black to the Future. And we've had the opportunity through the course of already the last couple of weeks of talking to brothers and sisters who are involved in the world of science, a wide range of areas, and you'll be hearing others throughout the balance of the month. But one of the things that comes up, especially on the connection of Black to the Future, is that when you do get the opportunity of going to Africa, and specifically to ancient Egypt, you are amazed by the technological mastery of our brothers and sisters going back thousands of years, and their perspectives on science, medical and otherwise. Dr. Ben, can you share a bit of that with us this afternoon?
Yes, I think that most of us, unfortunately, think of Egypt in terms of magic. You would hear people ask you, isn't it true that the Egyptians built the pyramids from the top down? All kind of ignorance. Or I mean, you got to be real nuts to believe that I mean, what hold up the first stone? Is it air hook and sky hook to a cloud? And then wasn't it mind power that moved the stones from one place to the next? I mean, if you get a little pebble this much, put mind power that and loose it and see, and don't move your foot and see what power gonna hold it from crushing your little toe. Now, yes, when you go, you see the science, you see the engineering, you see the kind of mental exercise that the ancient Africans of the Nile, not only Egypt, but this was done by the architects and so forth for the entire Nile. You notice that the stone work, particularly the marble and other such things, had to come from Nubia, that most of this was done by the Nubians. You look at the temples and saw to it that the engineer where they know the flood waters that was falling, the rainfalls in Ethiopia, they knew right down in any part of Egypt by virtue of the Nile meters they had built, just when the flood's coming on, just when the major waters are going to reach Egypt, at Abu Simbel and places like that. They knew the calculation to make maps and make them accurate by virtue of creating instrument to measure the planets and other stars and so forth in their relationship to the earth. So all of that was done at a very early age. Just figure in the first dynasty, that was known to the extent that in the third dynasty, Imhotep and others established the first educational system as we would know it, like a university called the Grand Lodge of Saqqara.
Mm-hmm.
So,
please,
and we must need state that is at least 3,000 years before they had one government anywhere in Europe.
You mentioned that we're not just talking about Egypt, talking about the Nile Valley. Can you elaborate on that?
Oh yes, many of us do not know there are pyramids in Sudan. There's at Meroe, there are 32 pyramids, whereas in Egypt there are 82. In Zimbabwe there's a cone-shaped building. It's not called a pyramid, but it's in fact a pyramid. All along the Lion Temple in Sudan, there are the various turns that were placed into the Nile to slow down the inundation. There are the buildings that were built in Ethiopia into the ground, hewn out just as the Abu Simbel was hewn out. There, even in much more later days, in the Christian era, in Ethiopia you have churches hewn out of the mountainside, out of the rocks. There in Lalibela, you got one church built in the rock, down into the ground. That I'm, as a matter of fact, going back about the 5th of April, I should be in Ethiopia at Lalibela and Gondar and all those places, rechecking the hotels to make sure that the December trip to Ethiopia, Sudan, and so forth. And in the trip, like the December trip, December, January, we are starting again, going to see these places, going to Bahadar, and then in Gondar you will see the old forts and temples, and so forth.
You always make the point, Doc, that the civilization flows upward.
Yes, it came down. Civilization did not go up the Nile, it came down the Nile.
Right. And of course, to understand the Nile, though, there's a whole other kind of perspective.
The Nile also came down the hill, because water doesn't run uphill without special pressure. The gravitation flow is to follow the topography of the land and the direction and downwards. So that since up in Africa, Northeast Africa is the highest point, and things roll, the water roll off that table. It either goes south or it goes north.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the maps a moment ago as well. There's a place where we see a kind of credit given, and Dr. Ivan Ben certainly dealt with this in his lecture with us about a month ago. Henry the Navigator. And the whole idea of the Europeans going out to explore with this new wealth of information and so forth they had, but one has a hard time trying to find in the textbooks where they get this information from.
Well, number one, it's strange that last night I was in Newark, Delaware, and after I finished my lecture there, I was in my hotel room, and they had these 3 ships of Columbus showing it coming in, and I was looking for at least one of the admirals to look like me, and it was 3 crackers, and I said, well, whatever happened to Pietro Orlando Nino, the captain of the Santa Maria and the admiral of the fleet? He was the admiral of not 3 ships, 7 ships. The 4 got destroyed off Cuba. And Columbus was the admiral of the expedition. He was in charge, but he didn't sail a single ship. Proof of the matter is when they put him in the brigs, in the ship's jail, was he still sailing the ship? I mean, let's go.
Right.
And they admitted that the soldiers revolted, the sailors revolted against him and put him in the ship's brig. I mean, everybody agreed to that. Then that Alonzo Nino, I saw no black sailors on that ship. Yet, Spain up to that day was run by Africans. The Moors had just finished ruling Spain. And the Africans were in charge of both military and commercial shipping, civilian shipping. And all that is, nothing of this is brought out. The funny thing is, nobody's challenging any of this for sundry reasons. The question again is, where did Columbus gain his navigational skill? Wasn't it working with the Moorish seamen who went out into the Atlantic? Let us go further. King Necho, Pharaoh Necho, had commissioned Admiral Hanno, H-A-N-O, in 711 BC to sail from Egypt around Africa. He went as far as what was called Barbados, today it's called Cameroon, which means shrimp, the Shrimp River. Again, in 988 BC, Queen Makeda, before she became Empress Makeda, you all call her the Queen of Sheba. She was not Queen of Sheba, she was the Queen of Aksum, but the Empress of Sheba. When a queen captured another land, and that other queen or king comes under her, she becomes empress of that land, but still remain queen of her land. Well, she has a map of her sailors who were sent to the southern part of Africa and showing the southern part of South America. These are, Columbus fully well knew that nobody falls over anything, but he had to tell them stupid kings and queens in Europe about falling over. Nobody in Africa with their stupidness. I mean, they knew about longitude and altitude long before, and latitude long before anybody in Europe. Europe just got to learn about longitude on the 14th century of the Common Era, whereas the European and the Asians and the Africans were dealing with it for years.
We're going to break for a moment. When we come back, I want Dr. Ben to talk with us a bit about the medical advantages that we saw actually occurring in that society that get handed down and ironically claimed by another group of people, the Greeks, who would like to have you believe that some of the medical practices that originated in Africa started in Greece. We'll talk about that when we come back. Dr. Ben is with us live in the GBE from the world-famous Apollo Theater. We'll come back with more right after this. I wanted to pose a question to you about the issue of medicine, medical science, and the role, if you will, of Africans in the progression of medical science.
Well, of course, you know, the major character in terms of medical science, the healing art, people always refer to Imhotep. But he was not the first physician. He's the best known and the one where we have the basic records for. But he himself referred to even his mother as a physician. Dr. Barbara Justice have done some articulate work in terms of African female, Egyptian female who were members of the healing arts. Well, that had gone down to the extent that at this early stage we have papyri, plural papyrus, where the doctors, the physicians in Egypt were already dealing with surgery on the human spine. You can find a number of references to this in the surgical texts. You could find where they dealt with Planned Parenthood, the prevention of pregnancy. That is called the Evers Papyrus. And by the way, I hate to disappoint a lot of our friends that the ancient Egyptians used pork fat for medicinal purpose, as well as I guess they're going to die when they read the papyrus and find that pork was used, the fat of pork was used throughout for all kind of medical.
A plug for a pork shop here, Doc?
I tell you, it makes me feel rather happy to know that I haven't taken the wrong medication. So I take my medication when I eat.
I see. I understand. Chops in particular.
I take it to the chops. Then, of course, the Ebers Papyrus called for Planned Parenthood to stop pregnancy while being involved with sexual intercourse, which is a very current thing, especially what's going on.
How far back are we talking on these things now?
We're talking at least in the 18th dynasty during the time of Hatshepsut, because they made it for her. There's a record of her getting a physician, and she was 1480, and when she, during the period in the 18th dynasty where we ruled. So we are talking about 19, we're talking about almost 4,000 years ago.
4,000 years ago.
4,000 years ago, they were already using Planned Parenthood. I don't think the Pope gonna like that, but whether he likes it or not.
This is real. You took us, Doc, to a site, and I'm not remembering which. It may come to you, where we saw one picture series at one of the sites that actually showed a physician, and the series of the pictographs actually showed animals who were lined up in front of this particular doctor, who had a pad, and he was looking at the animals and taking notes. The animals look as if they're sort of, sad. They have a sort of a sad look, like they're sick. Then the progression shows the animals after having seen the doctor.
Well, they were animal husbandry, where you call the doctor for animals.
Yes.
Were there. Obviously, that man started to practice medicine on other animals before he started with the human animal.
Yes. And
we seem to forget that.
The dog was so happy because the dog had been cured. The dog was like smiling, like, yeah, I'm cool now,
Yeah. What is damaging to the European is that now he must accept that many of the things that he taught us were incapable to have come from Africans. He must now accept. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. It isn't that he doesn't know about these things. He do know. He has gone and seen this before many of us.
Right.
But the point is that he tried to claim them for himself.
The Greeks in particular, right? If we start there.
The Greeks, and the funny thing is, the Greeks never claimed them. Then the Greeks give credit to the Ethiopians, the people of Egypt, for being the masters of science and law and medicine. It is the 18th century AD Europeans, and then the Americans, European Americans, who started the rape of Africa, both scientifically and otherwise. As Professor James called it, the stolen legacy. But Plato and all of them, Aristotle, gave credit to the Africans for whatever they were learning.
And that documentation exists. I mean, it can still be read. Yeah.
Pythagoras give a goblet and speak of the silver goblet that all of them had to give a silver goblet before they even got circumcision to start their education. And they even he wrote about the pains that they had to go through. Most of them were in their 50s and 60s to be circumcised for the first time. But the Egyptian said the rule was you could not get any education without circumcision. And they even explained to this how the pain it was to get this education.
But they wanted that education, obviously.
Badly.
Real badly. We'll take a break and we'll come back. Dr. Ben is with us live for the world-famous Apollo Theater. For Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. It's 1:35, 25 minutes before 2 o'clock, and it's 25 minutes before Mark Riley's Smart Time. Let's welcome back our guest, a member of our family as well, honored elder Dr. Ben, live from the world-famous Apollo Theater. We are going to open up our telephone lines at 692-9542 and the nationwide toll-free number 1-800-332-1023. Those numbers will put you in touch with Doc this afternoon inside of our program. And, of course, stage left and stage right microphones will open for you to direct some specific questions or comments to Doc on some of his remarks today or questions you'd like to ask him about whatever other areas that you'd like to pose to him this afternoon. Doc, maybe another point before we actually get into some of our questions. On the issue maybe of 2 points, the mystery system and the system of law that was actually being practiced in Egypt.
First of all, a correction needs to be said. There was never a mystery system in Egypt.
So-called mystery system.
The Greeks called it the mystery system because when the Greeks arrived, they did not understand what they were seeing or hearing.
So it was a mystery.
Or touching. So it was a mystery to them. It's like algebra is a mystery to a person who knows nothing about mathematics. But to the person doing the algebra, it's no mystery.
Okay.
So it's the educational system, and that system was already perfected by the third dynasty because it was handled by Imhotep. It was supported by the Pharaoh Dzusa, also called Ser, and that would be the third Pharaoh of the third dynasty at Saqqara. Now when Saqqara burnt down and they had moved the capital from Memnefa and Saqqara further south to what is today called Luxor, at that time called Waset, they even went further in perfecting that educational system. It's at that time that they did establish subordinate lodges in Asia and elsewhere that were connected there and carried their seven liberal arts, their science, engineering, etc. As you know, that was carried into Asia and other parts.
Now, when we talk about this system, we're talking about the law of opposites. We're talking about a host of different things. Sometimes, because of the way that information is segregated in this society, where mathematics is one area, science is something else, and so forth, it's very difficult for people to grasp the fact that this was a more holistic approach where all of these various areas related to each other under one doctrine.
For instance, that's the problem we're having with European educators and some African Americans and African Caribbean who tie themselves to the Europeans. Because of the separation of certain information they call history reporting. That's why the Europeans once said that Herodotus was the father of history. They are saying that he reported facts, but never make the analysis within those facts. Whereas the Egyptians and other Africans kept all of the information together, and that's what they meant as a historian as against a reporter. Well, it is like saying today that there's a physician. All physicians learn about the entire body of the human being. One may specialize, or anyone may specialize, but he or she knows the entire human body. By one concentrating on that particular area, he would be more familiar, but it doesn't mean that the other does not know about that same area. And that's the difference of what Western educators are trying to do. By separating from the body, they're saying then, I must give them a special title. Okay, I'll give you the special title, but it doesn't mean that the other one doesn't know it.
And it's really not the African way, is your point?
No, the African approach everything in a holistic way. If you come to attend to me and I get hit in my head with a rock, you know I need a psychiatrist as well as I need a bone specialist. Because there's no way you're going to hit me with a rock in my head and I ain't going temporarily crazy. Something got to go wrong with my psyche and everything. So the fact that you treat my head, the bruise and the blood spilling and the bone broken, and you didn't deal with my mind, you haven't completed the job. Because there's no way that shock ain't mess with my mind.
Right.
All right? You look at the boxer in the ring, he got knocked down, and you just go and give him some smelling salts, and he come back and say, you're all right. He may go inside there and die. It's because that scar is going to be there. They're going to be scar tissue. Knock a boxer out, he's going to, when he get up, he got scar tissue. And they keep on and keep on, and wind up like Muhammad Ali. It isn't one day that Muhammad like that. It's the consistent scar tissues that was going on in his head that caused him to be like a piece of fruitcake today.
We're at Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. We'll give you the chance to talk directly to Dr. Ben on our telephone lines at 692-9542 and 1-800-332-1023. We'll test our telephone lines first. Make sure that you are on with us. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. You're in the GBE Live at the Apollo. Hello.
Hello, Gary. Hotep.
Huh?
I'd like to say happy birthday to you, and may you be around way after Saturday, to have this show more,
Asante, brother. Asante.
And I'd like to say good afternoon to Dr. Ben.
Good afternoon.
I got one question. I would like to know where I can purchase these books or where I can get this information, because I'd like to know. I have debates with my friends sometimes about stuff about Africa, and I would like to know where I can get these books so I can further my knowledge about my ancestors, and just have it so I can pass it on. Each one teach one.
Thank you for the question, brother.
You should find it in any African-American bookstore in Brooklyn, New York, or any place like that. And if you cannot get it from then, look in the telephone book in Manhattan and you see the name Arthur Lewis.
Arthur Lewis?
Arthur Lewis.
Oh, Arthur Lewis.
Yes.
A-T-H-U-R.
Arthur. Yeah, Lewis. And medical doctor, even though he's a medical doctor.
L-E-W-I-S.
Yes, and
okay.
No, L-E-W.
L-E-W-I-S.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, it would be on St. Nicholas Avenue, but when you look at it, you'll find it, and the telephone number.
Okay.
And if you can't get it at the store, then you'll get it from him.
Okay.
And by the way,
all right, I love you, brothers, man.
Gary doesn't have any birthday.
Yeah, well, he's having something.
He doesn't have a birthday.
No?
Gary does not have a birthday. His mother have a birthday.
Okay.
He didn't birth anything.
Okay, okay, yeah.
That's
Yes.
He's right. He's right.
He's right. Definitely, he's right.
And let me add a little cherry to that cake.
Yeah.
I was actually born on my mother's birthday,
ironically,
as well.
To your mom.
No question about it. Thank you, brother.
All right. All right. Peace.
Talk Radio 1190 WLIB. Stage left, brother. Go right ahead.
Say, brother, what you probably know about there's a historical event taking place this month, March 21st in Namibia. After a 30-year struggle against European colonialism, Namibia is free, and they're celebrating their second anniversary of independence. And I'm from the African Nationalist Construction Movement, and we have a tour going there next week. We have delegates going there because President Samuel Jomo has asked us to come and get involved. He opened up the entrepreneurial lines to us, and also resettlement. And so we have people that you know going. Robert Harris, Sister Black Rose, and we having a forum this Friday night at the Harriet Tubman. A barn voyage for, I gave Manifa White one of these and the information you probably know about.
Okay, brother, no problem, but we want to make sure that this stays with Dr. Ben because the time is short.
Well, I'm coming to Dr. Ben.
Okay, go right to it. Now, what was the date for the other piece?
Well, it's
the meeting at the
Well, it's March 21st. They have the second anniversary of independence.
Yeah.
And they also have an all-African conference where people from around the diaspora will come there and see how work our problems out.
Understood.
And this is the forum at the Bon Voyage is this Friday, 6:30 to 10 at the Harriet Tubman.
Okay, great.
Now, Dr. Ben, it's a pleasure to talk to you. Once I'm a long listener. Some years ago, I heard you say on Gil Noble's show that when Spain came to power in 1485, I think you said, after the Moors had ruled it for 774, you said that they took the last 4,000 Moors and tricked them and put them in chains and took them to the island of Espanola.
I didn't say put them in chains. I said carry them to the island of Espanola, possibly put them in chains. Okay. They may be, probably chaining was one.
All right, my question is this. Then how does that relate to the population that's there now? The Dominicans on one side of the island and the Haitians on the other side. This is my question.
That happened when Spain and France had a war for the island of Hispaniola, and the end result was a stalemate. It's not only in there, down in a little further down past St. Croix, there's the Dutch and the French split one.